Okay, Hilda. So this is Hilda Palmer, and she's going to tell us about working from home and what we need to know to work from home safely. Over to you, Hilda.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, John. Now we're now being encouraged to return to work after a period where a lot of people have actually worked from home. I think it's worth revisiting all the issues around health and safety and working from home. There are good and bad issues about working from home, obviously, and now especially when people are returning, there are many more contacts that people are having. To be working from home is going to be safer because you're avoiding contact with all those people. If you have particular vulnerabilities, if you're Black or ethnic minority, you're older, you've got underlying conditions, it will be safer for you to work at home. It can be more flexible, it can fit in with things that you've got caring responsibilities, and particularly looking after children or homeschooling. And it can save a lot of stress from commuting, and particularly now, you know, commuting on public transport or sort of out there mixing with more people. You maybe don't want to do that, and it can save money. There can be problems with it, and as we go into the winter when you're working at home and you maybe have to use more heating, the extra cost, which may be offset by the saving in commuting and other things, but those are the things that have to be sort of looked at, and safety reps have to be very alert to all the issues around this. There are also other issues about who's offered the chance to work from home. The people who are most at risk are frequently the people who can't work from home or aren't offered that opportunity. But it can also be that people are being made to work at home who would actually prefer to work in an office with other people. There are some bad things about working from home. There's the risk of domestic violence, I think, which we're all much more aware of. There are problems working alone, working in isolation, not having enough support from colleagues or interaction with colleagues. If you're living completely alone in your house, that can be very isolating, can have led to a lot of depression and a lot of feeling of being left out of things. And many people will have suffered trauma during this period, the deaths of family members, or just a whole feeling of depression and stress and anxiety and worry about the future, worry about their jobs, worry about what's happening. All of those things, the mental health of workers has to be taken into great account. It can be very stressful for people working at home if you're working in circumstances where you don't really have the conditions to work well at home. A lot of people don't have a proper table or a dedicated space in which they can work, where they can sight their computer properly and have good lighting or have a decent chair to work at. And if there are two adults trying to work at home, also trying to homeschool children, that can be incredibly stressful. And I think we mustn't forget those sorts of things. And while during the lockdown, there has been a lot of effort by union branches and by work colleagues to keep in touch with people, maybe by having communal Zooms. As more people go back to work, we're going to have to look at how we actually try and make sure that those people in work and those people who are not in work are actually still sort of kept together and still feel supported. We also have to watch out for the fact that employers are always looking out for this, how they can manipulate this to their own best advantage. Some employers will be good, but we know that they're always looking to see how they can do us down in one way or another. And particularly we have to look out for issues around equality. For example, are women being mostly allowed to work at home and men not? Could that be a way in which women are then missing out on the networking and whatever that's going on in the workplace and missing out on opportunities and being overlooked for job opportunities, or just left out of the whole discussion about what's actually going on at work? So there are all those sorts of things that I think we have to really look at. Employers have to provide you with equipment and a safe place to work, whether that's in the workplace or at home. That's very clearly established, and we provide some documents. I've provided a document on how to make sure you can set up your computer safely, and also the HSE guidance on working from home, which makes it very clear what your employer's responsibility is to you. And that's very important that safety reps and workers are aware of, because employers still like to try and pretend that it's really up to you. When we first went into lockdown, obviously there was a lot of goodwill and people were prepared to work, you know, at laptops or maybe in very unsatisfactory conditions just to get the work done, and because things were very extraordinary circumstances. But this has been going on for months now, and I think it is now time for workers to say very clearly what it is that they need to work safely at home, including a proper workstation assessment, that their work is properly planned, that they've got all the IT support, that they've got an adjustable chair, that they've got a means of separating their screen from their keyboard so that you can actually be safe. So all these sorts of things have to be now really looked at, and it's very important that safety reps are on top of this to help workers feel confident enough to challenge their employers when this is not forthcoming. The main problems from working at a computer at home are musculoskeletal disorders, anything to do with your muscles, your nervous system, your tendons, your bones, your skeleton, that come from sitting in fixed, awkward positions and working very fast with your fingers. All those sort of things can produce pains in all of your body, from your neck, your back, all the way down your arms to your hands and fingers, and also in your legs if you're sitting actually very incorrectly, and eye strain and stress. But the musculoskeletal disorders are the most important ones. So to make it safe to work, and if you look at our document, you can actually see I've provided a lot of information about the position you're trying to achieve. You're trying to get the best position in which you can sit for a reasonable amount of time with breaks every hour. You can have a perfect position, but if you sit there for 4 or 5 hours without moving, then it's still going to cause you a problem. And if you have to work too hard or do too much work under too intensive stress or monitoring, then that will also cause problems. But essentially, to make it safe, you've got to set up your computer on a desk or table with the window to your right, right angles to your screen. You should never be looking at the window with the screen in front of you, or sitting with the window behind you, because in that way you will get reflection and glare, and that will mean you adjust your posture really awkwardly, and that will cause you lots of problems, and also cause more problems with your eyes and just more stress. So you set up your computer properly to start with, and then you've got to sit properly. That is why you really need an adjustable chair and an adjustable desk to get the right position. The law, the display screen equipment regulations, only allow for an adjustable chair. So that's really the minimum you should be asking for from your employers. And you need to sit at in your chair and make sure that you're sitting fairly upright with your bottom in the back of the chair, and that curve in your back, your lumbar area, just above your hips and your bottom, if you like, should be supported by the back of the chair. And your legs, your feet should be on the floor, supporting your legs, so that there's no pressure on the back of your legs on the seat. And that's because the blood has to flow back from your legs, from your feet, to your heart at very low pressure, and you don't want to compress the veins in any way, or you'll start to get circulatory problems and pains in your legs and feet, and that's not a very good idea. So you don't want to do that. So your thighs should be parallel, horizontal, parallel to the ground, or slightly pointing downwards, and your feet flat on the floor to support them. If you can't get that in a minute, you'll have to learn about putting your feet up on a footstool or a lever arch file or something. But you can see all that laid out very clearly in the diagrams in our document. And you need to get someone to help you to do this, to look at how you're doing this, to see how you're sitting. Quite often you think you're sitting properly, but you're actually not. And that's why self-assessment for display screen equipment is a load of old rubbish. So then what do you need to do? You need to get your arms at the right position. And then what you're trying to do is to sit with your shoulders relaxed, your arms pointing downwards, and then bent at a nice relaxed right angle at the elbow, with your forearms parallel, horizontal, parallel to the ground, and your hands in a line with your arms. So they're not flexed up or down at the wrist. And they should hover above the keyboard so that you can then type properly without any extra strain. The last thing you want to be doing is holding your arms up and putting all the strain here in your shoulders. Now, you may not be able to get that position without raising your seat. And then if you have to raise your seat to keep your feet flat on the floor, that's when you must use something like a footrest, and a lever arch file or something like that is perfectly adequate just to keep that position right. Then the other thing you're trying to do is to get your head in the right position so that your eyes are looking at the screen. The screen is at the right height. Your head is heavy. Keep it right over your spine. If you lean forward, there's a lot of stress and strain in the muscles and tendons in your back and neck, and you can feel that stress and strain if that is actually what's happening to you. If that's where your problem is, your screen is probably too low. You can usually diagnose what's wrong with your computer position from where you're feeling the pain. So in order to get this right, you need to have your screen high enough so that when you look straight ahead with your head over your spine, your eyes are looking at the top of the screen, the actual screen, rather than the top of the computer. And you should be about 1 meter away from it. And then that allows you to keep your head straight, you're looking straight ahead, and your gaze falls down naturally across the computer. You don't want to be looking up or down, because that will cause those problems. Now you can see from what I've just described, that's the very basic, that's a very quick description. You can see that you must have a computer with a separate screen and keyboard. If you've got a laptop, it's only okay for working very short periods. If you've got a laptop, then your employer should be providing you with a docking station or an extra keyboard that you can plug in so that you can make that separation. And that is absolutely vital. If you haven't been able to get that over the few months, then you're probably already suffering. Lots of people will have developed quite serious musculoskeletal disorders over this period, and you must make sure at the minimum you try and get an adjustable chair, and you try and make sure you can separate your keyboard and your screen. There are other things, and you'll see that in the document, but that's the essential. That's what you're actually trying to do. That's the best position. Once you've got that, that doesn't mean you can sit there and type away for 4 hours a day without any problems. You must make sure that you take a break every hour. If you're working very badly at a very inadequate desk and chair and with a laptop, then you need many, many more breaks. I would take 3 or 4 an hour, only work for very, very short periods, but you must take at least 5 to 10 minutes every hour. Get up, move around, exercise, do some big movements, and try and, keep yourself hydrated. Take up drinking more tea, go out, have a break, run up and down the stairs, just move your body in a different way. Otherwise you're going to get lots of problems. So those are the basic things that you really have to do in order to try and make working at a computer as good as possible. You need to negotiate for good hardware, good software, good support from your IT departments, and make sure it actually works for you. Headsets if you need it for working with, if you're doing a lot of telephone calls or you're doing lots of online meetings or conferences or whatever. And your work organization has to also be negotiated. That's part of the whole thing. That has to be safe. So that means the hours you work, the workload you've got to do, and any monitoring, and how that fits in this COVID situation. That has to take into account what other responsibilities you've got while you're working at home. If you're looking after children or other people in your household who need caring and you've got to work, then there's got to be adjustments to your workload and to the targets or whatever you've set. And those are the sorts of things I think that are going to become even more crucial in the period to come, and where both workers have got to be empowered and made confident enough to challenge these things, and safety reps have got to be backing them up and looking out for all of these things. I think in a very quick way, I've covered most of that, and I hope that document backs it up. And obviously, if you have any problems, you can always contact us at Greater Manchester Hazard Centre.
Thank you very much. And can I just say the documents at Greater Manchester Hazard Centre website under the fact sheets. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, well done.